All right, MTN Nigeria just dropped their half-year 2026 results. So like we normally do, we break these sections for you. So if you look at the headline, like we normally say for the records, this you see the headline, our research, public research here is divided into 4 sections. And like we say, let's repeat it again, you get this research on time more if you are following us on X, because that is when we make the post. But on YouTube, you need to make video, stuff like that, edit, upload, and stuff like that. So if you want to get it on time, always follow us on X. This is our X page, _invest. So you get it in red, and like you can see, this was on the 3rd of February, 3rd of August. This is 3 days already. So even though the analysis is still timely because it's evergreen until the next quarter comes out, which you can even overlay it on. So you can see that in our analysis, we have 4 graphics. Look at the price chart, which is what the market is saying price-wise. We look at the income statements. We look at the balance sheet. Then we look at the cash flow. And our analysis on X is we try to compress it into 4, showing you the headlines, the what's happened, that's the market performance in terms of numbers, what we found out, then the evidence backing up our findings, and finally what to watch. So that is what you read. With this, it gives you is an unbiased view on a particular market, stock or business. So like we normally do, so let's start with the graphics. After that, we now tell you some things you don't see on X. So the first thing we are previewing is the chart price. So if you look at the price of the asset, so you will see that this is what MTN has done over time, starting from when it was listed in 2019. You see what price has done. You look at the left. You don't know how to read the chart, just look very closely. It's not difficult. You just at least to know what price. So this is overlaying. Some people call it grab. If you know some market first, or you see where price is at a point, price close went up to this high, dropped by. So currently trading at 837 naira. So that is about the price chart of MTN and its performance. So let's now look at the income statement. Okay, this is the income statement using H1 2026 and H1 2025. So you can see that revenue grew by 25%. So the top line is doing well. We tell you what backed up that revenue and stuff like that. Then if you look at the middle line, which is the operating profit, you can see that it grew by 41.9%. Very good. Then if you look at the bottom line too, after deducting tax and stuff like that, you can see that profits grew over 707 billion naira. That's over 70%. Then EPS, if you look at the margins, they are all looking about operating net. Then even the interest coverage also shrinked. The tax effect also shrinks. Dilution side of things, there was more earnings, and the EBITDA too grew. So pretty nice numbers looking at this like this. Or we are gonna give you the context to there. If you look at the balance sheet, assets also grew by 10%. So they are now sitting on a total assets of over 5 whooping. So over 10%, you can see. Then that's over 5 trillion in assets. Wow. Then you can look at the equity side of things. So you can see that both the returns, equity grew. Then you can see the liability side of things. Then on the ratio side of things, you can see the liquid side, even though it shrunk a little bit, the current ratio still shying away from 10, which is the ability to service short-term debts. Then the equity to liability to equity also improved a little bit. The return on assets, of course, which have not been annualized, also increased. Return on equity, wow, increase. So looking pretty decent. And finally, let's look at the cash flow statement. That's the free cash the business generates. So in 25, the free cash flow was 573 billion. while in 26 it was 771 billion. So more free cash flow. So these are the numbers. Now let's go to the facts behind the figures and stuff like that. So when we look at that revenue, you can see that the revenue is almost entirely operational. That it comes from operation. There is no so much we call it non-recurring thing that our accounting shenanigan that added to the revenue. Then the bulk of the revenue, of course, is MTN Nigeria. So it came from Nigeria. So there was no foreign assets income. And then also the product line they have is they have voice, they have data, they have SMS. So data make a bulk of that revenue. So, and that data revenue grew over 38.3% to a tune of 1.6 trillion, while voice grew by 15%, SMS grew by 21.9%, but data is still leading. Then there was two macro tailwind that contributed to the revenue. Number one is that finance income jumped close to 42 billion, which is reflected. So they have cash and they put it on a fixed instrument, whether treasuries, and yielded returns for them to the tune of 42 billion, which is very good. Another macro drop that added is this time around they have an FX gain because Naira appreciated against their dollar, the dollar obligation. So they netted a 41.6 billion FX swing gain. But if you go down to the business segments, apart from the product we have mentioned, they have three major business segments: the CB, which is the consumer business unit, the EB, the enterprise business unit, and the WB, which is the warehouse. So this you can overlay to people that demand bulk of. So for the consumer, is the only business unit that is growing. Consumer business unit grew by 36.3%, but the enterprise dropped by 12.8%, and the wholesale also dropped. So it means that it is only the consumer business unit that is doing the heavy lifting. So it's worth watching. Why is the other segments of the business dropping? Then if you look at other things, they fully repaid all their dollar denominated obligations, so they don't have any dollar obligation now. Then also they weigh in on paying dividend, which they declared also 26 naira interim dividend, and their free float also doubled. So currently their free float is over 2.8 trillion. That free share float, the value increased. Then MTN Group also, they are still trying to conclude the possible acquisition of that IHS. IHS, trying to complete the acquisition of it so that they will hold those infrastructure, even though it directly doesn't affect MTN, but if that asset comes into their group, so they will have a better deal if something like that is possible. But it's a kind of secondary factor to consider. So this is it about MTN. So in conclusion, you can always come back and read this watch to watch. Yes, you can see the overlaying factors which I've already discussed. Then you pay it, listing, read very well. Then for those of you who say, okay, can you point us to this analysis here, point us more, you can always come for this service. Check our pin message. You see deeper research that can show you valuation levels, entry levels, portfolio structuring, and stuff like that. It comes in a cycle, 5 cycle in a row. So the details are there. You can read it, send on an inbox, and we get you started on that. If not, every other thing you need is here. You run along with it, overlay it with your own analysis, and you are good to go. So see you on the next one.